Thomas Dimitroff, former Patriots head of personnel, former Atlanta Falcons head of personnel. I know those probably aren't the exact titles, but yeah, close enough, right?
Close enough.
Joins us here. Was my sources indicate was going to be again the Falcons head of personnel if Bill Belichick got the job, but that came up short. So now he's sitting here with us on Radio Row. Am I speaking out of school?
No. I was not given that job. I didn't even talk to them about the job. I was watching it closely. I think I was the only guy that really knew both of those men as well as I do. Maybe Scott Pioli did, but Scott never worked as a GM with Arthur, of course. And there are always nuances, right, when you're talking to head coaches and you're talking about how they're going to interact with an owner. And Arthur's a great guy. I really appreciate him that way. And like anyone, those
what
two
happened?
guys,
What happened with Bill here?
Look, I mean, I had 90-10 on my board every day I went to work saying it's going to happen, if not even more. I think in the very end, you have two guys who got along really well. Bill and Arthur, meeting on the yacht first, right? Beautiful yacht, by the way. I was there one time before I got fired.
Where was the yacht?
Well, I think it was down in the BVI somewhere. I don't really know, but they were hanging out, had some great discussions. But in the end, there's an intergroup in there, right? Look, anytime Bill goes into an organization, you would assume, whatever your thoughts are about him, he deserves the right to run it. Meaning, if there's a GM there, Terry Fontenot, Terry was going to stay, but he was going to work with him. But maybe there was a group inside the building there who kept pushing back to Arthur, saying, look, look, let's call it the way it is. Any organization wants to keep their world, right? Presidents want to keep their world. You saw the discussion about Rich McKay, right? Rich is very talented. He knows a lot. The fact that he and Bill would have to work together or not work together was something that wasn't probably going to happen. And Arthur had made it pretty a bold statement saying that was not an issue. And Bill had said that he was going to work ostensibly with Terry Fontenot, so that wasn't going to be an issue. But I think everyone looks at it like, yeah, but when you get someone like this in there, it's going to be overhauled.
So Arthur sided with his people versus Bill Belichick, basically. I mean, he had to make a choice.
I think in the end he has to make a choice, and he has to make a choice about what he's looking for in the approach to culture, right? And he brings in Raheem Morris, and I know Raheem well, right? Raheem's gregarious. He is smarter than a whip. Like, he is on top of it. If you guys ever had him interviewing, he does not miss a beat he's one of those guys that never stutters for some reason. He's on top of it. So he's been there before. Arthur brings him in as an optimist because that's what he is. And so they go in with Terry Fontenot and Raheem working together closely. They got to find a quarterback there, and I think they felt like that was the group to do it. Yeah. So
how surprised are you that there wasn't more interest in Bill overall?
Unfathomable to me. I swear to God, I am blown away. And I know and if it's your narrative, I'm sorry. There is a lazy narrative there that, okay, it's quarterback. Okay, he doesn't bond with the players anymore. I can look at that, and I would look at that if I was to be an owner or a GM that was working with my owner on potentially hiring him. But I think there's so much more. I mean, he is a situational mastermind. Tactical. He has so much going for him that I've been around coaches who I really think highly of prior to being a GM, even being a GM, and I love Dan Quinn. I'm so excited that he got another gig. I think that's great for him. But I think most people would understand they're nowhere near that situational. I'm saying as the season goes on, during training camp, during game weeks, during the games, there are so few people that have that mental acuity that Bill has that you can't just get any time. Okay, people would say that, well, Bill's getting older and he doesn't respond to the players anymore like he used to. I think if you get the right coaches around you, I think you can take care of some of that, and you continue to learn and understand about that.
I don't think that's it. If you're asking my opinion, he's more trouble than he's worth. And when I say trouble, you've got to, again, I'm exaggerating a bit for effect, but you have to blow up the building.
Yep, you do.
You've got to pay out the nose. You've got to accept that you're not going to get all the information. He's not the most communicative guy, and the stories are notorious. That line that was reported that when he did the final press conference with Robert Kraft, that's the first time he drew eye contact with him in 3 years. I mean, it's notorious. He walks down the hall, it's like he doesn't even know you. You've got to accept that. You've got to accept the money you have to pay him. Did I mention that? He's going to want to bring in his own people at all levels of the organization. It's going to be a little more insular. You're not going to get communication like you once. And then in 2 or 3 years, you have to start all over because is he really a 5-year kind of plan? So at the end of the day, that situational thing you're talking about, which I don't think he's as good as he used to be, but I'll still give you, he's better than most. Mm-hmm. Is it worth all that? And that's, to me, what I think stands in the way of him.
If you think that he's going to give you the best chance to get into the Super Bowl and make a run at it, that is worth it.
For some teams, I think he makes sense more than others.
Oh yeah. No, it's a great point. And then you start thinking about a GM, right? And I've been back and forth on this, having been in the league as 13 years in that GM role. If I had an opportunity to acquire a coach that had power about him, and I've kind of already been there, done that, having the role and being 53. Total control guy, and I realized that this guy was going to be the dude that was going to take us to potentially get us to the Super Bowl, instead of like flipping around with, let's try this new 32-year-old head coach. Don't get me started there. I'm not saying there aren't some young good coaches, but let's keep it in perspective. It's kind of like you looking at data, right? You're like, oh my God, don't talk to me about data, right? I sometimes think that about some of the young coaches. Like, I want to go in there as a GM who has experience and say, let's work together and let's put our egos in check. Well, let me put my ego in check and let's roll on it.
But you did say if he was surrounded by the right coaches, then he would be able to relate to players. Do you think relatability is Bill's? This is the hang-up, like guys, GMs look at him and say like he's just too old.
No, I don't. I think no. I think Bill relates to certain. This is always been my take. He relates to certain players who put their asses on the line. Can I say that?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
You could say worse.
No F. No F.
No, not that. No.
Okay. I did that with Pharrell one day, and Scotty Pharrell wanted to kick me off the set. I'm thinking, of all people, Scott Farrell's going to kick me off the set. But Bill, I think, because he respects the person that's going to put their butts on the line all the time. It's the same with the coaches that he doesn't get along with. Not saying, if you come to the table and you deliver as you're supposed to deliver, then I believe there's more collaboration. But by nature, he's not the guy that's glad-handing everyone.
Rank and file players, I think he's okay with. Quarterbacks,
Stars and egos.
Stars, egos, players with big contracts. Yeah. I think he's going to have a harder time with those. I don't think that's gotten better over the years. And so, the hardworking, team first kind of tough player, he connects with great. What coach doesn't? So it's those other things I think he has trouble with. The thing about him being collaborative in terms of with the GM and whatnot, something I've always pushed back on, Thomas, and I know that you've said it. I know you've done books with my friend Michael Holley, who I do TV with on a night basis. Michael Holley says it all the time, that Bill wants to be challenged. He wants pushback. He's willing to take other opinions and factor them in. I've always said, I say it to Mike's face all the time, I don't believe you. If Bill Belichick showed you that in a personnel meeting once, it was just for effect. It was just so you'd put it in your book. I don't believe at the end of the day that Bill really wants that. I think Bill, at the end of the day, follows his own instincts on almost most important cases and shuts out those around him. And that's been the reporting here at the end, that he lost a lot of scouts lately in the last several years because they didn't feel their input was being valued.
Well, look,
someone who's been in there, so you tell me.
Yeah, no, look, he was very mindful of me during those times. I was only there for 6 years in the scope of it all, right? Guys like Scott Pioli, he listened to a lot. I don't know if you've talked to Scott about that.
Sure.
A lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a really important part of the organization's growth, right? Scott and Bill talking a lot at a lot of levels. Scott would keep it in check at times, and I thought he did a really good job with that. Of course, I moved away in 08. They continued a little bit more. My interaction with Bill during my time there, all the way back to certain players we'd throw up on the board, and he would listen to me. He was never disrespectful to me at that point. Why? I'm not sure.
Did he follow your suggestions?
Sometimes.
Give me a player who you wanted who he shot down.
Oh, God. No, shot
player.
down?
Come on, give me a good player. Give me a good player. I mean, listen.
No, look, I'll laugh.
The story's famous that he said you should draft Baldwin instead of Julio Jones,
Yeah, right,
and you didn't vote. That was after you.
That was after. Right.
How about in New England?
I remember going there when I first got to New England, and I'm looking up at the board, and we're looking at all the players. And what we did is we folded in all of our players with all the draft players. So there's Lawyer Malloy up there. And I'm like, I'm thinking, this is my first time. Scott tells me, hey, you're going to be doing the safeties, man. And that's Bill's position. I'm like, oh, my God, this is my first time coming in here to really work here. So I go up there, and I'm thinking, okay. And that's not I've never been, I wasn't raised that way. My dad was a football man. I was like, you deliver what you deliver. If you doesn't like it, then whatever. But I'm looking up there, and I'm going, Lawyer Malloy, man. I start being positive about Lawyer, and he's like, wait a minute. And he just stopped me dead. But I won't use the words. But
he
basically,
says he can't run.
But yeah, basically it was like, no, and it was kind of one of those wah-wah-wah moments for me. It was my first delivery there as the new national scout, and I try to pump a guy up like Lori Malloy. And he basically said, no, absolutely not. We're on our way on this. And then, of course, we ended up moving on from him. But we had moments like that, but we also had moments when he was like, Thomas, I really appreciate, whether it was Eugene Wilson. I'll make sure I'm getting the names right.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some good players. Asante, there were players like that he was, very, very good about listening.
Asante was your guy?
Well, I'm not going to claim he was my guy, but he
yes.
I spent
You're too
time.
modest.
Look, I love the secondary. I spent a lot of time on the safeties and corners and all of that. But yeah.
So Terrence Wheatley, were you gone?
I was gone.
Who can I blame you for?
Who can you blame me for?
Delta O'Neal? Did you
No.
Did you
Delta
do pro
O'Neal.
stuff?
Ellis
No,
Hobbs?
I didn't do
Ellis Hobbs, there's one.
I did Ellis Hobbs. I did Ellis
there we
Hobbs.
go. We can blame
Ellis
you for
was
him.
one. Yeah. Can you blame me for? What did we get out of
No,
him?
he was all right.
He was okay.
He was all right. And
Was he a third rounder? Tell me.
Yeah, it sounds right. Middle of the
It
draft.
was Ellis Hobbs. Good call. Yeah, those are good calls.
Okay, Thomas Dimitroff joining us,
instincts.
former personnel head here in Atlanta. Are you still doing the analytics thing?
So still working with Sumer Sports, yeah.
Is that analytics?
It's analytics, yeah.
Do you want to defend what happened in the Lions game?
Let's go, okay? The analytic community loved what Dan Quinn did 2 weeks ago. How'd you feel about it? Or last week?
Dan Campbell.
Yeah, Dan
Not
Campbell. I'm sorry, Dan Campbell.
So I'm a big believer in looking at it, but I'm also a big believer in that person saying, given all the scenario here, you go with the damn football decision. So my point is, personally, I wouldn't have gone with the data decision, but my guy, Eric Eager, if you guys talk to Eric, PhD in math, man, sit down every day.
Yeah, he doesn't play ball.
But he did play at small school.
He's a mathematician.
But he's a mathematician. But he did say to me, he said, I was all for it. I'm saying, I wasn't, but that's okay. I can be. Even though I run a data company, I'm a big believer in it's not black box. It is man and machine in that mode. You have to realize there's other things around that. You look at it and you say, man, yes, no, yes, no. Given the situation, I'm going to do this. I'm going to kick the damn ball. So, I wasn't for it, but hey, there's a lot of things that go around sometimes on the analytics side that I'm not for. There's a lot of things, though, that it augments well that I think, wow, if I would have had that in Atlanta, I might not have done A, B, and C or X, Y, and Z. And that is the honest to God truth, not just because I'm CEO of a company trying to make it successful. But
The first one almost bothered me more than the second one. You'd gone back up 3 scores, right? So 22 minutes ago in the game, that seemed like the logical place to kick it.
yeah.
But that aside.
Yep.
Well, can I get one more on
Yeah,
this?
go ahead.
Do you think the calls were actually made upstairs?
Do I think the calls were made upstairs?
Yeah, I got the sense so he kicked it at the end of the second quarter, right? And he had the offense on, and then late they changed. And that one smelled a little fishy to me, almost like he got it from upstairs.
And you're referring to one of his coaches or his analytic, whatever it is. It comes down
that the analytics team is on the headset.
Yeah, the analytics or whatever coach that is, what does it say? Dan Quinn used to come to we used to have the guys come to the building, and every week we would get a book this big. Remember, our analytics, by the way, just so you know, we are focused on roster optimization. It's about team building. We're not into that world about making the coach's decisions.
The fourth down decisions.
No, I understand they're important. There are a whole bunch of other companies. There are very few third parties that are doing what we're doing. And ours is about making sure that we're trying to make the right decision, whether it's in free agency or the draft. So I do understand what you guys are talking about. That's not our role. That's not our role. So. Yeah.
It's more GM analytics.
Well, no, what I do is
GM analytics.
Yeah.
It's team building. Yeah.
I lump all the analysts, the nerds together. So that's me. I profile on that end. But real quick, do you think those guys make calls in game?
The nerds?
Yes.
Propeller heads?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, I think they make them, and then the coach has to say yay or nay on it.
But they're involved. Like when they're,
sure.
when they're
I think,
4th and goal at the end of the second quarter, the nerd has a say in there. He's somewhere in the mix.
Yeah, and by the way, I say it lovingly because most of my guys are self-professed nerds, and they love it.
But they are in the mix.
They're in the mix. They're not making the final call.
They're in the mix.
They're in the mix. Sure they are. In today's world,
they're in the mix.
Brandon Staley, you don't think he had someone in his ear?
Oh, my God.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, okay, real quick, they're telling you just one more. So, do you have a third overall pick? What do your analytics say about that third overall pick?
Talking about here?
The draft,
yeah.
Yep.
Jaden Daniels.
Is that a no-brainer?
I don't know if it's a no-brainer. I love it because the guy's athletic. The guy's competitive. We can talk about that. You guys can get me on when we're talking about the draft. You gonna be at the combine?
We'll do it. No, but
okay.
But maybe we'll have you on anyway.
Well, have me on.
Yeah, we'll have you on.
Yeah, as we're getting close to that. I'm excited. There's 5 interesting ones, right? I was just talking to our buddy Tom Curran. He's like, no, they should be drafting back. And I'm like, gosh, my nickname was Trader Thomas in Atlanta. I didn't have a real track record of trading back. I probably would do it now that I'm in data. I'd be like, hey.
The analytics say. Thomas, thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
You haven't had any contact with anybody in Foxborough, have you, about their opening?
I have not.
Good question.
That is a very good question. I was watching closely in Atlanta. I thought I'm just around the corner. I can go over there and.
Well, no, I heard you. Well, I heard if Bill got that job.
Yeah. Well,
I'd place the call if I were you.
yeah.
Yeah, just ask what the hell, see what they say.
Well, I think you
and
got-
then let us know.
Don't you guys have some good? I mean, you have Elliot Wolf.
It would help if you were being paid by somebody else. Then I think you're in. Like they love those guys.
Yes,
All right, Thomas, thanks for coming by.
See you guys.
Thomas, thank you.